In the rolling hills and hollers of the South, there's a vine that creeps into every shadowy, forgotten corner, climbing trees, blanketing fences, and smothering old farmhouses. Kudzu is more than just a plant. It's a metaphor for how things grow wild when left to their own devices. Beauty and chaos not only coexist here, but are also one and the same. The Kudzu Project tries to make sense of it all. The small town struggles, the entangled lives, the deep roots, and the common thread that stitches our communities together. Join us wherever you download podcasts for fresh dispatches from the venerable South with our host, Nick Lucy.
So I like to roll on the small talk because sometimes you get good stuff, good nuggets during this portion. My wife and I moved here 2 years ago from Colorado.
Where about?
We were in Castle Rock.
Okay.
Castle Rock's right between Denver and Colorado Springs. It's a very fast growing community. Right before we left, it was growing by 3 to 5 families a day.
Oh my goodness.
So that was a community with, incredible growth. The Denver area was growing by 120,000 people a year. It's still growing pretty quickly. I don't know if it's quite at the pace that Charlotte is, and it's funny because you hear the same protests from the local community. It's growing too fast. It's too much traffic, too many people. So, it's funny. We moved here. Hendersonville kind of checked all the boxes when we were thinking about moving here. The more we dug into the little communities in this area, the more we found that Hendersonville was a lot like Castle Rock, the town that we left in many ways, and in all the good ways, really. But yeah, experiencing growth and good small town charm and a lot of community events and that sort of thing. So that's how we chose Hendersonville.
Now, are you from Colorado?
My family is originally from Maine. My mother, so my grandmother, like I told you about the deportation story, my mother, her first language was French. So she grew up in Maine. So my mom and dad were from Maine, and then they moved to Wisconsin in the early 60s. And I'm the only member of the family that was born in Wisconsin.
Oh, wow.
So the rest of my family was born in Maine. And then we moved around a little bit. We actually we lived in Canada for a while. My dad's job took him there. And so we kind of returned to our roots in Quebec. We lived in Montreal for a couple of years, great city. And then we moved back to the Midwest for a while. I went to college and quickly realized that I was way too young to be in college. I was 16 when I graduated high school and kind of bombed out after my first year. So my parents kept threatening to cut off the tuition. So I was like, I'm going to join the Marine Corps. And so I joined the Marines. I did 5 years in the Marines. I was always into languages. I was going to be a Korean translator interrogator. I had about a week left in boot camp, and they called me into the office. And they said, we found out a little bit about your grandmother, the one that was deported. We can't grant you a top secret clearance based on that. So they said, you can pick another job or go home and forget this whole thing happened. And so I was, my head was shaved. I was a lean, mean fighting machine. And I said, well, what's the hardest job to get into? And they said, public affairs, photojournalism. So that's where the Marine Corps took me for 5 years. So I did that. I got out after 5 years. My last duty station was Parris Island, South Carolina.
What years were these?
I went in 87. I got out in the end of 92.
Okay.
So during the first Gulf War.
Yeah.
Got out, found out that there was a magazine based in Savannah called Rodale Scuba Diving Magazine. I wound up working for the magazine for 15 years, traveled the world, scuba diving all over the world, writing stories and taking photos. It was a fantastic experience. They sold the magazine to a competing company in 2008. I had cooked up this idea to start a television show with a friend of mine from the dive industry. So went immediately into television after the magazine, spent another few years traveling the world, producing episodes for this TV show called Into the Drink. Did that for 2 seasons. We produced a 3rd season, and we were in the process of editing that season. And my business partner, 43 years old, had a heart attack. The TV show went away. I moved to Colorado. I had planned to move there to be kind of equidistant between my business partner and our TV editors, and you can produce a television show anywhere there's an airport and internet access. So moved to Colorado. I was in Colorado for 10 years, worked very closely with the town of Castle Rock, helping them with their communications department. So fast forward, my dad's 93 right now, 93 and a half. And they moved to Pinehurst, North Carolina. My two sisters wound up moving to Pinehurst, and my brother's in Salisbury, North Carolina. So we were all kind of scattered to the winds, but regrouped in North Carolina. And my wife's family's in Chattanooga and Nashville. So we wanted to find a place, halfway between the two families. And that's how we settled in the area. So yeah, we've been here for 2 years and started the Lucy Agency when we moved here, sight unseen, didn't know a soul here in Hendersonville. And it just, like I said, it checked all the boxes. It's a great little community, and it's a wonderful, wonderful place to call home. That's my story. And
I like that story. It's interesting that you were doing the photojournalism during Desert Storm. So my aunt was actually a POW during Desert Storm.
No way.
She was a flight surgeon with the Army, and they were in a helicopter crash. They were shot down, and 2 people on the chopper survived. She was one of them, badly injured, both arms broken knee, broken back. She was taken into custody, and you can imagine they were not very nice to her.
No.
And she's, 5'1", maybe 90 pounds, but she commands a force.
Wow.
At Thanksgiving, everybody's together and talking, and it's loud, and everybody's, just not paying attention and trying to get a family photo. And she puts her fingers in her mouth and whistles, and it's like everybody runs, no one messes with her.
Wow.
But she's a really remarkable person. She lives on a 80-acre horse farm in Northern Kentucky now. And but she started a huge resiliency program for the military and lectures at West Point and different places. Wow. And she's just a really unreal human being for what she's been through, and to come out and be able to help other combat veterans and other folks in the military kind of build resiliency towards what she refers to as adverse events or things that happen while they're in service. And she's really a big idol of mine.
Wow. How long was she incarcerated?
I think it was like 30 something days.
Wow.
I was young. I think I was 12, maybe 13. And I remember it being really stressful for the family.
Yeah.
I mean, you remember bits and pieces when you're that old, but I just remember my mom and dad crying all the time. They would get some sort of a news and then didn't know if, and then she would get moved. And then they didn't know if she was coming home. And then when she finally got to come home, it was pretty powerful.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I actually didn't make it to theater, but I remember there was a lot of anxiety about that conflict, because we weren't sure if they were going to use chemical weapons. And, wow, that must have been really traumatic.
They were on a search and rescue mission, actually. And they went out in unsafe conditions, but she was very diligent that they were going to go out because they were not going to leave those guys out there. Huh. And then, risked her own life to go, but that's what they all do.
Yeah. How'd she get freed?
There was negotiations at the State Department, and she got to come home that way.
Wow.
And I think because she was a woman, it had some impact on just the communications, the ability for them to get her back.
Yeah.
It was still pretty amazing.
So mostly emotional scars?
Yeah, she's got residual injuries from the broken arms and her knee. She's fighting a knee replacement, doesn't want to do it, but her knee is just kind of, shot from just degenerative changes that have happened from that trauma. But yeah, mostly emotional scars. And I mean, I think she handles it relatively well. I don't live her life inside, so I can't imagine what she feels like day to day, but yeah, she's pretty amazing.
There's a pretty large veteran community here in this area.
Yeah.
We do a lot of work with the Veterans Healing Farm.
Awesome.
And we were just privileged to go on the Blue Ridge Honor Flight.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah, that was really
I went
cool.
last year. Jeff Miller,
Yeah.
you know Jeff, yeah. he's a good friend of mine, and he had an open spot. I guess one of their medical people got sick last year, and so he asked if I could join last minute. And one of the most touching moments ever. And I was so fortunate to be able to be on that plane. And I have lunch regularly now with a couple of veterans, and I just fell in love with them and loved hearing their stories, and they are funny. Oh my gosh. Just, I guess after you've been through that much stress, you have to have some sort of sense of humor to get you through life. And I think laughter is huge. So that makes a big difference.
Yeah. Jeff's a great guy, and it's an incredible
one
program.
Of the best dudes.
And he started the thing that basically started it for all the rest of the honor flights.
Yeah. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, actually, in Dayton, Ohio. I'm from Fairborn, Ohio.
Okay.
And that's where I was born and raised. I did undergrad there, and then moved to Iowa for grad school, and then ended up here in end of 2003. And I've been here since. My aunt is a chiropractor here, and so I joined her in practice when I graduated. And I got to come here as a kid, and this place was so special when I came as a child. It was just so glamorous and pretty, and these mountains
and warmer.
Growing up in the Midwest, or at least, you understand this, it is gray from October to March.
Yeah.
The sun doesn't come out. I mean, it's like that gray outside for 4 months straight, and
soul crushing.
It's brutal. And so at least here, when it's cold, the sun still comes out, which makes a big difference. But Colorado has how many sunshine days a year? Like 288 or something crazy? There's
I say a myth, because I don't think it's ever been proven, but they say there's 300 more days of sunshine than Florida per any given year.
Yeah. And
I was just talking to somebody else that's here in Hendersonville from Colorado. I swear 40 degrees is much warmer in Colorado than it is here.
Oh, 100%. 40 degrees. I'm in a short sleeve shirt having cocktails on the mountain. We're big skiers. So my husband and son actually just got back on Sunday from Copper Mountain.
Oh, nice.
So my son is a downhill racer. So he ski races on a team at Sugar Mountain. Both my kids have ski raced. And my daughter is 15. So she's a sophomore at Hendersonville High School. And just a really great athlete, fantastic skier. She's, I don't know if you have children, but your first child is generally a little more cautious. They think about things a little differently, risk, reward kind of thing. And then that second one comes along and it is like no fear, no care in the world. And so Shelby had a crash on a ski race course a couple years ago, tore her MCL, and she's decided that the injuries in volleyball are significantly less catastrophic. And so she would like to stick with volleyball now for club season in the winter. And Enzo, my son, he's still ski racing. So he was at a preseason slalom camp at Loveland. And then they went to the World Cup race at Copper.
Oh, cool.
And Enzo got to get interviewed by NBC. So he was really excited. He was down at the finish line waving the American Olympic flag. And so they interviewed him. And so he thought he was big time, and it was awesome.
Will they be riveted to the TV for the Winter Olympics?
Absolutely. Yeah. We all will. Yeah.
We're big Winter Olympics.
Winter Olympics are my favorite.
Yeah.
We, actually, when Enzo was born, Winter Olympics were on, and he was born at home. And so we were watching the Winter Olympics all day while I was in labor. And it was kind of a weird labor, just kind of not really moving along. And our midwife was at the house, and she had decided she was going to come over and get things moving a little faster. So she made a castor oil smoothie for me that morning to try to get contractions started. And around 4:30, she broke my water, and he was born at 6. And he was 11 pounds. And so he was born right at home during Winter Olympics of 2014. So it was awesome.
Was there some competitor named Enzo on the TV at the time?
No, my grandfather.
It's a great name.
Well, what's funny is hindsight, we didn't even realize my daughter's name is Shelby and my son's name is Enzo. And people are like, oh, you guys are into cars. I'm like, not really. But no, Steel Magnolias is one of my favorite movies. And my grandfather, his brother was Enzo. And we always heard funny stories about this dude. He just seemed like the kind of guy everybody would want to be around. And so that's kind of the personality that Enzo has.
It's a great name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it.
So you started your journey in the Dayton area.
Yes.
And so was your aunt here already?
Yes.
In Hendersonville?
Yeah,
and
my grandparents.
And you would visit here
As a child, yeah. We would go camping up at Grandfather Mountain and, sliding rock and all those things when I was younger. And so I loved it here.
So you always had it on the back of your mind that you
Absolutely.
were going to wind up here.
Yeah.
And then did you move here kind of sight unseen from a business sense, as far as setting
I
up?
did. I did a preceptorship here with my aunt at the end of 2003, and I officially graduated in March of 2004. I started practicing with her. And then in 2008, I had kind of outgrown the space that we were in, and I drove around Hendersonville looking for a place to call my own. And I found the building that I'm at right now across the street from Hendersonville High School. Cool. And I called the owner up and asked him if he would rent me the building. And so we signed a lease, and I actually purchased the building several years ago from him. And that's where I'm at. Wow. And I always had this dream. So I grew up in a relatively small town in Ohio. And one of my favorite things about Hendersonville High School being across the street is in the fall, when I hear the band practicing after school and the cheers at soccer games across the street from my office, I just get this warm and fuzzy feeling in my heart, because that's how I grew up, right. Hearing these sports events and people, rallying around your local team. And so that close knit, tight community is what I crave. And I feel really blessed to be able to raise my children here. And yeah, I love it.
Very Americana.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And congratulations on 2 decades, right? Your business has been around
21 years now.
Yep. So, and feel free to give yourself a plug. It's called Well Adjusted
Chiropractic and Wellness Center. Okay. I love what I do. I am not anti-medicine, but I also don't think that we should be using it to the extent that we do. It shouldn't be like a first resort for things. And there's a time and a place for medicine, and it saves people's lives, but also drugs can be dangerous, especially pain medicine. And, we've seen that with the opioids and the fentanyl crisis, and just having an alternative for people who are in pain. And also, I just believe that the body has an innate ability to heal and to be healthy. And sometimes it just needs a push in the right direction. Yeah. And the human body is really one of the most fascinating things, I think, in the world. And I love learning about it, and I love talking about it. And I love having faith in your human body too. So
yeah, I always say that hospitals make you sick, and I think that if you just look at it from a common sense point of view, there's no incentive for the healthcare industry to make us healthy, because they want a customer. I mean, it's pretty simple when I think about it anyway. And so it's taken me a long time. We've embraced an organic food lifestyle. Sugar is the devil. Yep. All that kind of stuff. And
except for these Hershey Kisses that I brought.
Well, yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
We won't talk about that.
I think I like a 80-20 rule. I think if you're doing what you should be doing 80% of the time, then it's okay to live in, a little bit of a rebel area here and there. And also, I think it gives you a little bit more stamina to have a healthier lifestyle when you just don't expect yourself to be right on target all the time. Because I think a lot of people, especially in America, there's so much stuff available all the time. And it's easy to kind of fall off the horse and then just have a lot of shame or guilt and then just not be able to stick with it. So I think if you just have like rational, obtainable goals, then that really helps.
How does being a chiropractor fit into the big picture of overall health?
I think looking at health through a holistic or vitalistic lens is just crucial. There's way more to health than just the organs or the genetics, really. And if you read anything about epigenetics, you can start to understand that you could have a gene for cancer, I could have a gene for cancer. And sometimes in some people, that gene is never activated their entire life. And so what makes these genes activate? And, when you look at, the alpha helix and how DNA is transcribed, and these things are triggered by environmental and external factors. And so really paying attention to those factors, right? The emotional aspect of health, the physical aspect of health, the chemical aspect of health. And so kind of looking at that approach, I think is a much more comprehensive approach to healthcare and wellness.
I was on your website, and I think it mentioned something about you adjusted your babies when they were born.
Yes.
That kind of blew my mind. How does that help?
So when you think about the human body, your brain and spinal cord control every nervous function of your body, your nervous system. You have your parasympathetic nervous system, your sympathetic nervous system, your autonomic nervous system, which controls all your organ systems, your lungs, your heart, everything. And so we believe if there's disruption in that system, then it can create disease or dysfunction. And so adjusting children and babies, especially after birth, coming through a birth canal is very traumatic. It's traumatic to the cervical spine. We don't adjust babies like we do adults. It's very, very gentle, sometimes just like a thumb kind of press. But my children have always been very healthy. And even when they seem stressed, or they're not sleeping well, or if they ran fevers when they were younger, I would always adjust them, and they seemed to be calmer. They would sleep better. I like to call those attitude adjustments sometimes, but so getting adjusted can also help statistically with inner ear infections for children, otitis media, sleep, bedwetting, because again, these are all nervous system dysfunction.
Right.
And so making sure that your nervous system is reacting and responding optimally gives you the best chance of health.
Cool. Yeah. I spent a lot of my life, you hear on movies, my chiropractor, it always sounds like a luxury that you have a chiropractor, but it's really not a luxury, is it?
I don't think it is. But I do understand it is for a lot of people. Back to the healthcare thing, right? Insurance it's a total racket. It's so frustrating to me from the healthcare standpoint to see where we are in this country with health insurance. It just seems, I know I hate to use these words, but it feels criminal, honestly, how people are treated. And, we have people right now paying good money for health insurance. They pay a lot of money for health insurance that they can't use, or constant denials. And we, in the last 3 years of my practice, have dramatically cut the insurances that we take. And it was mainly we were forced to. We gave up United Healthcare 4 years ago now. We would spend hours on the phone trying to verify benefits. Then we would get the benefits. Then they would be wrong. And there's no accountability. You can't speak really generally to somebody that even barely speaks English. And then when we ask to speak to someone else, we get disconnected. And then, the claims get denied. And then, for small businesses, we don't have the capacity to deal with that. And I actually have seen recently the party is cutting out some of their Medicare Advantage plans and United Healthcare. And it stinks because ultimately affects the patient, right? But we are expected in the medical community to continue being competitive with our wages and recruit and retain good quality, employees. But the problem is when you look at insurance reimbursement rates that are being cut every year. In 2004, when I first started practicing, Medicare paid the chiropractic adjustment code was paid $47.36. I think that was, I could be off by a nickel or something. Now, 21 years later, The insurance reimbursement for that exact same code is $37.53.
Wow.
So in 21 years, we've actually decreased in reimbursement. And this isn't just chiropractors, it's across the board.
And the cost of living has gone up.
Oh, yeah. But this is across the board. This is medical providers, your hospitals, your skilled nursing facilities. And so, our revenues are continuing to be cut, but then we're also now expected to pay higher taxes, higher insurance for ourselves, for our employees. And it's just, I don't know what's going to happen, because unless the people who are making the decisions stop getting so much money for making those decisions, I don't see anything changing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the scary part. It's like something catastrophic is going to have to change. And it's just not humane to continue the direction that we are.
Yeah. It seems like so many people in politics, run on the idea of fighting that. And it just seems like once they're elected, they run into a buzzsaw. Yeah. And that is big pharma and healthcare. And then suddenly they just don't have that same drive, or they peter out, or they get bought out, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, maybe a combination of all of it.
Yeah.
They're so powerful, so powerful. And that it's hard. Yeah, it really is.
With that money comes power, I guess. Did some of that frustration motivate you to go into politics?
Maybe, yeah. I think I have always been active in some way, and I don't know, decision-making or leadership roles. I was a class secretary in high school, and, we all have, I guess, some kind of ego that we think we've got it figured out, or, right. Our way is going to be better than other people's. And I think that ego incrementally increases as you go up in local offices or higher offices. So us lowly city council folks, I think our egos are mostly in check. But yeah. And so I've never felt like I was the type of person who could walk past something and know that it was wrong and do nothing about it. I have always been like, whoa, that's wrong. We have to fix that. Like, that's not okay. And so I've always kind of had that mentality. I served on the Henderson County DSS board for almost 10 years and chaired that board.
What's DSS?
Department of Social Services. Okay. And so I have a big passion for children and older folks, generally people who can't advocate for themselves. And so I did that for a really long time, and I chaired the Henderson County Parks and Recreation Board. I love being a part of just that healthy lifestyle. I was on a state board for child fatality and protection. And then also locally here in Henderson County, we have a child fatality and protection board. That board is a group of varying professionals from the DA's office, from the medical examiner's office, from the sheriff's office, from social services. And our job is to analyze all child deaths under 18. And then we can make recommendations based off of those to help try to prevent death in children. There are some deaths that are genetic causes and things that we not necessarily on a local level could do a whole lot about, but there are preventable deaths that we can 100% impact. Suicides and accidental drownings was a big one. We had a case when I was there of an accidental drowning, and it really rocked me because none of the adults that were on the property knew CPR. And so I was able to partner with Blue Ridge Community College. The Henderson County manager who was there at the time was Steve Wyatt, who was just an amazing, compassionate man. And we did a series of videos and then blasted them through Henderson County's EMS or emergency management channel. It was played at Party Hospital. And it was basically like, hey, if you don't know real CPR, if you don't know, just do this until help arrives, because even just basic compressions are enough to keep blood and oxygen flowing to the brain to save someone's life. And so And then a few years ago, a friend of mine, her name is Amy Lynn Holt. She is on the school board, Henderson County School Board, and a Rebecca McCall, who is a county commissioner. Yep. I reached out to them because I'm still on the drowning thing, and I wanted to be able to get access to swimming and swim lessons for children, all of them. And so we were able to partner with the Y, and we now have a free safety around water program for every second grader in Henderson County. And so it's like really cool to see the things that you can do if you're willing to do them. You know, if you see something that's not right, or you see something that you think you could make better, and then you find other people that are, you know, like-minded and that can help. And we joked around the old executive director at the YMCA. She said, "So how did you guys get together? And how did you get up with Rebecca?" And I said, "Well, she's like the older sister that married really rich. And so we knew she had the checkbook. So we had to get a hold of her." No, I'm kidding. But, you know, you've got to find good partners, and you've got to find people that can make things happen. And so that was really great. And so that was one of the things I've been able to do since I've been elected. And one of the reasons I ran for office in the first place, I lived in Flat Rock, but I owned a business in the city. And there was a vote that was going to happen that changed the address of my office, where my office is. And I called to try and discourage that from happening, and kind of got dismissed when I tried to explain that this was going to be really bad for my business. This was going to be a very negative thing. And the person was very dismissive, and it made me mad. And so I don't know if you know what happens when you make women mad. We come. I'm married. I know very well. We come back, because I was like, wait a minute. You've never been in business for yourself, and you're making a decision about my business and my livelihood. And because when you're a healthcare provider and your address changes, the government thinks that you have moved your physical location. So now you have to re-credential with the insurance companies. Right. So they stopped paying me for a long period of time. I couldn't get checks mailed because they thought I had moved, and I didn't move. I was in the same location, but it was just an address change. And I mean, still we have trouble getting certain pieces of mail there today. And so I was talking to a friend of mine. I was like, "This is not right. What could I do?" He said, "Well, move into the city and run for city council. Make these decisions." I was like, "Okay, well, here I am." And so, 9 years later, here we go. Wow. Wow. So you took office in 2019? Yes. And you were just reelected? Just last fall. Okay. Yeah. So we, Lindsay and I got sworn in right before COVID happened. And that was like the craziest time ever. And so we were supposed to be up for reelection in 2024. 2023. The city elections used to be odd number years. Municipal elections were odd. But the city of Asheville moved to even number years several years ago, maybe 9 years ago, to increase voter turnout and just community engagement. It saves the Board of Election thousands of dollars from running elections every year, essentially. Right. So then the North Carolina General Assembly moved us, kind of shifted everybody back a year. And so we ended up running again last year, which was, during the hurricane. And but yeah, I was reelected last year, and just very proud to be continuing to serve. And when I found out that the mayor, Barbara Volk, was going to retire, I thought it would be a really good time for me to step up and continue some good female leadership and just a very balanced approach, and just a compassionate approach. And I'm living the life, man. I'm picking my kids up from school, running them all over the place. You remember when you have kids, right? I married into a family. Okay. Yep. So when every phase of parenting, while you're in that phase, you think that's the worst and hardest phase. Not worst, but you think it's the hardest, right? When you're pregnant, oh, it's horrible. I'm so tired. And then you have these babies and you have no sleep, and it's so tiring and exhausting. And then you get these kids now where we are at, where we are just running around every day like crazy. They're both, very active in sports. And so it's like every phase. And I think I've realized that this is just God or the universe preparing me for the next harder phase, because it just keeps getting harder and more challenging, but it's also very fun. And so, yeah, we just keep plugging at it. And I really, it's a good phase of life, but it's also, I think, gives me a very unique perspective of what the people here are experiencing.
Yeah.
I'm experiencing the same things, and my kids are experiencing the same things. And I want it to be good for them. I want it to be good for years to come. And I don't want to make partisan decisions. I just want to be a good person and do right by my neighbors.
Yeah.
And so hopefully the voters will see that record and see how hard I work. And that will earn me a seat. So as the mayor.
I ran for town council in Castle Rock back in 2016, and I lost to a guy who had been there much longer than I had and was much better known. And just running taught me a lot about how communities work. And I felt like politics on a local level are a little bit different than politics on a national level.
Absolutely.
There are issues that you see face to face every day. And I don't think you have that luxury on a national level. The problems that you face are right there on your doorstep. Mm-hmm. And it just hits different, I guess.
Absolutely. And, those decisions that you make that impact your neighbors, you see them at the grocery store.
Right.
You sit next to them at your daughter's basketball games. And so when you make mistakes and screw up, you're going to hear about it.
Yeah.
And
the good and the bad, right?
You do. Yeah. And unfortunately, we hear the bad a lot more. And, but I had a patient a couple years ago. We made a cost of living increase for our police and fire, and which I was very, very proud to support. And this was a grandfather of one of my patients, and he said, "Thank you so much for doing what you did. You have no idea how much that extra money is impacting him and his family." And man, that made me feel good, because these are my people, and I get to see these decisions be good for people and impact them, and help them afford to live better. And that's just beautiful.
Yeah. How has public office impacted your family life? I mean, you're obviously pretty well known around town. What does that look like in your day to day?
I don't know that it's really impacted us a whole lot. We are a pretty grounded family. Yeah. My kids are, I feel like, very protected as far as the environment that we live in and just the love and support that we provide each other. They definitely have strong political opinions. Just because they'll hear me come home and I'll be complaining about something that happened. And this morning, my 11-year-old, I asked him, "Hey, buddy, is there anything else that you're wanting for Christmas, or, what?" And he said, "Well, Mom, I really want 28 acres with a water source." And I'm like,
wow.
He's been hearing too much about Eddyville water and sewer in the house lately. And so
he doesn't want an Xbox.
No, he wants 28 acres and a water source. So
that's pretty cool, though, that's rubbed off on your family.
It's very cool. And Shelby came home from school the other day, and I guess her AP Gov class, which is her hardest class. And we joke her about that all the time. We're like, "Your mom is an elected official. Why is this your hardest class?" And, but somebody at school said, "Hey, I didn't know your mom was the Mayor Pro Tem." And, and so I guess there was a discussion in another class about Shelby's mom. And so, yeah, I mean, they're good sports about it. I know probably the phone calls and the late night phone calls get to them sometimes. And I try to be mindful of, like, okay, when we're together, I try to shut it off, but sometimes things are just, they get really amped up, and, these emergencies at 9 o'clock at night. But they're proud, and Enzo, he loves to go to events and he loves to go to things that we do. And it's just, we went to National or World Swim Day about a month ago. And he just, it's very sweet to watch him look at me, and I can see how proud he is. And I hope that I'm showing them that, you know, you can do anything you want to do. And even when it seems hard or seems impossible, you just do it and make it happen. Yeah. And there are small sacrifices here and there, but hopefully the sacrifices that you make yield amazing rewards or, you know, really beautiful things. And so they've been able to see a lot of really good things happen. And that makes them proud of their mom and their family, but also of their community that they live in. And that pride, I think, in your community is really important.
That's great. And you're the Mayor Pro Tem now.
Yes.
What does that mean? I know it's short for pro tempore.
Correct.
What does that mean?
The vice mayor, I guess is what you could call it. So if the mayor's unable to attend events or proclamations, I'll step in. If she's out, I step in and run the meetings. Man, I don't know if you know Barbara Volk, but she is like the coolest lady. I mean, she is just, we say she's a woman of few words, but when she speaks, you better listen. She's got important things to say. So she is actually a parliamentarian. So she just has this decorum and professionalism that I really admire. I wish I had a better filter. I wish I had more patience. And so these are all things I got to continue working on, you know, like
my wife wishes I had a better filter, but alas, I do not.
No, I every year I'm like, filter. I'm going to do better. And then I rarely do.
I think filters are overrated personally.
No.
But then again, you're in office, so
I know. So I've got to watch my P's and Q's sometimes, but you know, I have strong opinions of things sometimes. And, so I've got to do better, and it's something that I have to work on personally. And these are things that, you know, if you just think that you're perfect all the time, then you never grow and you never change. And so I've got to be willing to be introspective and see where my flaws are and continue working on those so that I can be a better person and a better wife and a better mother. And so I'm a work in progress. Maybe I'll get there someday.
Well, it's true for everybody, isn't it?
Yeah.
So when does the stumping begin?
Well, I officially filed today, actually.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
I met my husband at the Board of Elections and signed the paperwork and paid my $20.
So this is your first interview as a mayoral candidate?
Like a legit candidate today.
Wow, cool.
Yeah. So and then so it's now, and you know, the election is November of 2026. It's a long campaign season.
Yeah.
We used to have filing July before the election, and then when we got moved to the even numbered years or the general election years, they just they aligned everything, even filing.
Okay. Is it quarterly still?
No, the filings? No, it's now started December 1st.
I'm sorry. I meant like the financial
financial documents.
Yeah.
I haven't seen, I have a campaign treasurer who does all of that stuff. I think our first report is actually due sometime very soon.
Oh, wow.
So she compiles all that stuff and turns it in. And that is not something I want to do or care to do. I leave that to people who are much smarter than me.
I don't like the maths.
It's weird because I was a science major, a biochemistry major. So, you know, those things I should be good at. But I think I just have a lot of other things going on. So then it's like buy-in, right? Well, I don't want to do it. So it's easier if somebody else is doing it for me and they do it correctly. And so that's, So
I've always found, how do you focus on the important things when you get bogged down by numbers, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. That's what happens. I just lose like all focus.
Right. Do you know who you're up against?
I do.
And I mean, do you know them personally?
Yeah. He served on city council with us for a period of time. And then he resigned from city council a couple years ago.
Will that make it easier for you or harder for you that you know them personally?
I think running a campaign is always hard.
Yeah.
It's stressful. It's time consuming. I'm a control freak, so the lack of control of things and other people is hard. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's all hard. I hate the campaigning part. I think I'm a good elected official, and I work my behind off. I'm on 7 different subcommittees and boards, and I vice chair the French Broad MPO, which is the Metropolitan Planning Organization. I'm very, very active in our regional DOT and transportation. And so I was recently appointed by the North Carolina legislature to the Blue Ridge Community College Board of Trustees.
Cool.
And so I really work hard. And I think that it's really important to have elected officials who do the work and put in the time. You see some that don't. And it's a lot of work. And so having people on the board who are willing to share those responsibilities just makes the board stronger and better. And then it allows us to serve our community better. And I'm that person. And so I know my work ethic and I know how hard I work. And so hopefully that will come through.
Yeah. Only one other person running so far?
So far, yeah. Filing ends next week.
And is there party affiliation for the mayor race?
So city council races are nonpartisan.
Okay.
However, the parties do tend to make them partisan, or at least they have in the past.
Yeah. By way of funds.
Funding and, campaigning and, that kind of stuff. My first time running, I don't know, maybe I was a little naive and I thought, okay, well, I'm going to be in this nonpartisan position. So I should campaign in a nonpartisan way. I went to Democratic events. I went to Republican events. I got uninvited one time to an event that I was invited to, and I guess they thought I was a Democrat when they invited me. And then when I got there, they realized I was not a Democrat. And so then they uninvited me. And I said, well, do you want me to leave? And then she said, well, let me go talk to some people. And so then there's this group of people talking across the room, and they're talking, I know they're talking about me, they're in a huddle. And then she came back and she said, well, we've decided we'd like you to stay. And so I was like, all right.
Wow.
And, but I actually met some really lovely people. And, what I tried to explain to them is, we've got these, the spectrum, right? This far left and this far right, that are, in my opinion, out of their minds. And then you've got the bulk of Americans who are here. Yeah. And let's all kind of embrace hands, because we're actually a lot closer than these people pretend that we are. Yeah. And let's, for the most part, like the moderate kind of region is, you get more done when you're willing to reach around and help other people. They'll help you too if you help them, and you can do really good things when you're working together with people. And so we may not always agree on how to get there, but most of the time we have the same goal. It's just kind of a different way to get there. Yeah. I was able to participate in the NCLF, which is the Duke Leadership Forum, 3 years ago. And it is a group that they specifically put partisan people into this group of elected people and community leaders. And you've got to talk about difficult topics. And ours was affordable housing. And I have met really lovely, good friends now, City of Asheville, City Council people. And it's nice to be able to say, hey, they're my friends and we support each other from afar. And it's not always about your D or your R beside your name. And I just want to be a good person and do the right thing. And hopefully that is respected. That's pretty solid. I think it's respected by most people, and I know there will be some people who will never vote for me because I have that R beside my name. But I think that my reputation and how I have led I think it has proved to most people here that I'm the right person and that I'm going to do the best job and that I care deeply for this community. I'm extremely committed to this community. I'm not going anywhere, and at least not anytime soon.
Yeah, again, I think that party affiliation on a local level is so much more blurred, to me anyway, in my experience in life. Because again, you've got those challenges right at your doorstep. You're looking at people who need your help right in the eye. And so, how can you deny them things just based on a certain party affiliation? But yeah.
Well, and you shouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you really shouldn't.
Yeah. And I think that, left and versus right isn't linear. I think it's a circle. And I think that the farther you go left, the farther you go right as well. And they're all kind of crazy.
Absolutely. I agree with you.
Yeah. So here you are on the precipice of starting a campaign to run for mayor. The election is November next year. How do you feel about your prospects?
I feel good. I have been very heavily involved in a lot of projects and things going on. I was able to secure the final vote for the federal funding raise grant for the Acosta Trail.
Great.
And
that's a marvelous addition to our community.
I've been so emotional about it because, years ago, it was like, people were talking about it and there were these buzzes, and I was on the Henderson County Greenway Expansion Committee, and there was even a question whether we should include it in the plan because, it's probably not going to happen. And so that it just wasn't that long ago. And now it is the plan, and it's happening. And these are things that I've been a part of. And, it's really exciting. And I want to continue all of this. I've done a great job and I'm making good things happen. And so it's not time for me to go, and I want to step it up. I want to lead and be a good, strong leader and, serve our community. And I want to take care of our staff and be respectful of them. And we have the best staff of anywhere. I mean, I'd put our city management and our city workers up anybody in the world. During the hurricane, my husband works for Henderson County actually. And so he spent 18 hours a day at the King Street building. He and one of his coworkers, so the county GIS system went down. And my husband is not a computer engineer, but they overwrote the GIS software and created a mapping grid system, which is what they use to search and rescue for people up on the mountain. And so while he was doing that, we actually sent our kids away for a few days to just get them out of town. It was just, we had no water, no power, and it was very stressful, and just hearing the helicopters all the time. And it's hard to go back to those moments. We started a distribution center at Immaculate Conception at my children's school, which is where they went to elementary school. Hurricane was Friday, which was my daughter's birthday. And by Sunday morning, we're all just freaking out. We can't call anybody. We can't make phone calls, and my kids were like up that morning early. Their mom, can we go to mass? And so we did. We went to mass and I walked into the parish and our principal was standing there and she just looked at me. We both started crying and hugging and she was like, what do we do? What can we do? So that afternoon we started a distribution center. I started out just passing out bottled water to people pulling in the parking lot. And then the Indian restaurant on Main Street calls us and they're Aroma. They're like, hey, we want to cook food. And so they started bringing 1,000 meals every day to the school. And then the Catholic Charities of Charlotte started, we heard, okay, they're going to come tonight and they're going to bring some supplies. They've got like a pickup truck. Well, they didn't show up with a pickup truck. They showed up with like 3 box trucks and they were bringing diapers and food and water. And so that was what we did for the next week and a half. And my kids worked there. They worked at the distribution center. They were unloading diapers and organizing and shelving. And so this whole time I'm back and forth between our city's emergency response center, which was at Station 1.
At the fire station.
At the fire station. And, running errands. Jeff and I would hop in his truck and run from place to place because they were like, well, we need to get a hold of so-and-so and the phones are down. And, you know, so we would just, all right, well, we're going to go get them. And so we would run all the time. And the city staff just, I mean, they were sleeping on cots in the fire station and eating, you know, Dinty Moore, like canned. I mean, it was just, I'm like, what is going on? And, and these people had horrific damage. You know, the first day we went to the EOC and I asked John Connor, our city manager, I was like, what can I do? And he's like, I need somebody to go get eyes on the mayor. And he said, we know that a tree came down pretty bad at her house and we haven't been able to get a hold of her. And so we drove over and I mean, we had to cut to get into her neighborhood. Wow. And sweet Barbara answers her door and she's letting people, she had a generator and she's like, yeah, the house is demolished, but I'm okay. And she was letting neighbors use her generator to charge their cell phones and just, and then the next day she showed up at the call center and she was working the call centers. And so us elected officials, you know, people don't realize, I mean, Lindsay she had horrific tree damage at her property and Melinda was passing out generators to people. And so, you know, we were all like boots on the ground here in our community and working. And so, you know, I've seen this town at the worst of the worst, but it was also the best of the best at the same time, you know, like, and I can't think of a better place that I could spend my time and my energy on than supporting this place.
I think in hindsight, the you know, the stories of triumph and the stories of human resolve trump all the stories of misery in a way, because you kind of want to put the stories of misery away. But the things that seem to emerge in the memory now is all the great things that our community did to step up.
Absolutely.
And, it was incredible to observe. We had been here for less than a year when that happened. And
well, you sure didn't expect to come here and be in, I mean, I can't imagine having just moved here. You know, we've had some hurricanes in the past that were high winds and we had some flooding, but I mean, so I can't imagine moving here.
It wasn't in the bingo card to have a hurricane impact the mountains of Western North Carolina.
Not this far inland. It's just, it's insane.
But you always got to be prepared, right, for anything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's been incredible to see how the community stepped up. And it's incredible to see you step up for our community. And, you know, going back to the, you know, the stories about people complaining about growth, complaining about, you know, the influx of population into this area, you know, you being someone who moved here, I was someone who moved here. You know, the best you can do is hope to add something to the community and to, you know, let your voice be heard and to, you know, to do the actual work for the community. Right. I mean, how could anybody object to someone coming here to help the community? So I think it's remarkable.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I love it here. And it's sometimes crazy when, you know, I'll meet with residents about zoning things or development and they have literally said, we don't want any more people to come here. And I say, well, when did you move here? And they say 5 years ago. I'm like, well, how's that fair? You know, we all come here for a better life. We come here, you know, for 4 seasons and the mountains and, you know, safety and like, who am I to tell somebody else they can't come and seek the same thing that I did? Yeah. And so I don't want to be unreasonable about things. Right. I want to be respectful and, but also, you know, it still is kind of like a business. And, you know, in business, if you're not growing, you're dying. You're dying. And there are towns in North Carolina that didn't want growth, that turned down industry, that turned down manufacturing, and they are losing population. They're losing like funding from, I mean, they're really, it's sad. It's sad. And I don't want that for this community. Yeah. I want our community to be vibrant and healthy. And so with that, there does have to be some growth. Yeah. And, you know, so we've got to be thoughtful about how we do it. There's a big project out on 191 right now, and it's just, and I'm pro development. It is no lie that I'm pro development. Especially when it comes to like affordable housing projects. So we had an affordable housing project on 64, right across the street from Wingate and the hospital. And my opponent actually voted against that project and also voted to bring it down a story. And it is an affordable housing project for 55 and older, and it's using the housing tax credit. So these are people who are not going to be able to afford anywhere else. And and I went to the grand opening, and I went inside some of their apartments, and this sweet little woman told me she had never lived somewhere so beautiful in her entire life. And I'm like, if there hadn't been people like me who said that this is a need for our community and it's the right thing to do, she wouldn't have a place to live. She would still be living in a hotel room because she lost her trailer in the hurricane.
Yeah.
And so, we've got to be thoughtful about things, and our neighbors deserve, a humane and home. Like they deserve to have a home too. And so you've got to pick what is right. You've got to make hard decisions. There's a project on like 191, like I was talking about, and it is not the right project for that area. There's just the traffic is bad. It's a very narrow 2-lane road, and adding 2,000 more trips with schools. Like there's 3 schools right there, and so there are times when it's just not the right fit. But there are times when it is the right fit, when there's adequate water and sewer, there's adequate infrastructure for it. And so, you've got to be able to make those decisions sometimes, and they're hard and people are mean. And, fortunately I sleep well at night though, because I feel like I do the right thing, and not the right thing for, 2 people, but the right thing for, 18,000 people. And, looking at it as a vitalistic or holistic approach to our community.
There you go. There's the tie-in.
Right. So here we go.
Yeah, I've seen the statistics about the sectors of the workforce that can't afford to live here in this county, and it's staggering. The people that make this county work can't afford to live here.
The people that feed you, bathe you, protect you. Those are the people that can't afford it. Yeah. And we are doing a huge disservice if we do not support those folks, because they make our lives better every day. Our teachers, our firefighters, our nurses, and our service workers, like grocery store employees, our bank. You go in the bank, you're getting served there. And like, these are the people that make your life cushy and nice. And we have an obligation, I feel like, to support this entire community and not just a certain sect of the population. Yeah.
We were startled by housing prices when we moved here from Colorado, which is already one of the highest cost of living in the country. Again, I think it's part and parcel with, this is a fantastic place to live. You're going to charge a premium to want to live here because other people are going to want to live here too. So there's a certain hypocrisy about wanting to slam the door shut behind you when you move here. And so good on you for addressing that issue.
Thank you.
So what do you want to be in people's minds when they enter the polling booth next November? What is the one idea that you want to instill in their mind when they're going to vote for their mayor?
I want them to think I am their friend and their neighbor. And I grew up in, like I said, a smaller town where you could run to your neighbors and you could get that cup of sugar when you needed it, or the extra egg. Or if, dad was having trouble with a piece of equipment in the backyard, the neighbor would come over and help, get it out of the mud or whatever. And it's like, that's what I want to be. I want to be that friend and neighbor that you can call when you need it. When there's a problem, that you can call me, and I may not have the immediate fixed or they made an error, but I'm going to darn sure try to fix it. And so that is what I want people to see when they go to the polls is Jenn is going to be there and she's solid. And I know she's going to work. I know she's going to follow up on the things that I've asked her about. I know her heart is in the right place. She's, a good wife and a good mom and has a good family and is rooted here. And she's the person we need to do this job.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Jenn Hensley, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
And I wish you the best of luck in November.
Thank you so much. This was so fun.
Cool.
Thank
cool.
you.
Thank you.
The Kudzu Project is made possible by the Lucy Agency, helping businesses across the South grow deep roots and stand out. Based in Hendersonville, North Carolina, this full-service marketing firm builds handcrafted websites, eye-catching logos, and social media that pops for businesses and organizations. Because if your story's worth telling, it's worth telling right. Learn more at lucyagency.com. That's LUCEY agency.com.
Everyone has a story. And at the Kudzu Project, we want to hear yours. Go to kudzuproject.com and fill out our story submission form. You can write your story for us to read on the podcast, request to be interviewed, or even nominate someone else whose story deserves to be told. The Kudzu Project is all about capturing the voices and spirit of our community, and your story could be the next one we share. Visit kudzuproject.com and tell your story today.